Hey y'all, so here we are on a very rainy and gloomy day here at Ellington. I just walked out to open the hangar door and take a look and see what it looks like outside. So here, I'll show you. Beautiful view up and down the ramp here. Not much going on anyway because Air Force 2 happens to be in town. But even if it wasn't, pretty crappy weather out there right now. So I figured what I would do is, as I was walking to the hangar door, we got this beautiful MiG-15 here looking outside, and figured I would just tell you a little bit about the MiG-15. So, enough looking at my ugly mug, here we go. So, as far as we know, this is the second oldest jet fighter flying in the world, if not the second oldest jet. The 1950, I believe there's a 1949 F-86 Sabre flying in Europe, and of course y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. It's all about us all learning together, but we believe this is the second oldest airworthy jet in the world. This is a 1950 MiG-15. This one is actually a Chinese MiG-15 that actually has combat history in Korea. So it's really a treasure for us. I know we're the Vietnam War Flight Museum, but you know, it wasn't much before it, before Vietnam, that we had this beautiful MiG-15 fighting us against our beautiful F-86s and everything else. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about this aircraft. First of all, designed in 1949, this thing was built in 1950. Of course, McCoy and Gurevich were the guys that ended up making MiG, the company, and designing all these aircraft, were really on the trailing edge of the jet technology behind the Germans right after the war. And it didn't take them long to go over and actually find out that Rolls-Royce in Britain actually had some pretty good technology that they had come up with right after the war as well. So it's rumored that a billiard game actually led to the Russians winning a chance to buy a Rolls-Royce Nene engine, and that, along with the rumors that, you know, the Russians were walking around near the lathe with some, let's say, spongy soles, and they picked up some metal. So by the time they actually got this Rolls-Royce Nene engine delivered, they were able to determine beforehand what metal they were using, because apparently they were having trouble keeping their blades on at the high revolution, you know, that these jet engines spin. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about that. So basically what happened is not long after that, we got the MiG-15 that they developed with pretty much an exact copy of the Rolls-Royce Nene engine. So the engine they ended up putting in the MiG-15, or most of them, had 5,950 pounds of thrust. It was very fast. For the time, it was, you know, a swept wing, 35-degree angle of a sweep on the wing with a little bit of an anhedral, as you can see. I'm going to walk around in between the MiG-21 here and the 15, give you a little bit better view. We have the drop tanks, the external fuel tanks on this one. The MiG-15, unlike the 17, did not have an afterburner. It does have the speed brakes on the tail. And you can see the two stall fences. That's the quickest way I tell a 15 from a 17 from afar. The 17 has 3 stall fences and 2 pitot tubes. Actually, the 17 has 1 pitot tube and 1 dummy pitot tube, whereas the 15 actually just has 1 real pitot tube and nothing on the other side, as I'll go and show you. So that's 2 quick ways to see the difference. So let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of this aircraft. During combat, a lot of the UN, you know, Americans and British fighters, pilots would notice that this aircraft had a tendency to just stall and spin, and, you know, the pilots that were flying them would try to jump out, try to bail out and eject, and it seemed to happen quite often. So they realized that this thing was definitely, it definitely had some issues as far as slow speed control, but until it got down to that slow speed control issue, it was extremely maneuverable. It could outmaneuver our F-86s for sure, and but it obviously had some slow speed negative characteristics, which were found out later. After the war, we actually were able to get a hold of one of these, thanks to, well, a few different reasons, but one of the pilots defecting into South Korea and the Gimpo there, that allowed us to get a hold of one, and then, of course, we got a hold of more thereafter. Famously, Chuck Yeager was one of the test pilots who tried to figure out a little bit more about this aircraft and what it was capable of. So, let's talk about the speed restrictions, really. This aircraft was thought to be supersonic, just like the F-86, but it turns out it's not. It's definitely not at all. The MiG pilots during the Korean War were told to keep below 0.92 Mach. And the reason is because it does not have a full flying tailplane back here, which I'll go show you. It actually would start getting, basically you would just lose all your control surfaces. You would not have control of the elevator above 0.92. And it turns out, after further testing, it got worse than that. At 0.95, in addition to not having control of your elevator, you also would feel a massive buffeting of the aircraft. And like I said, Chuck Yeager famously went up to 50,000 feet, pointed the thing straight at the ground, and full power, he was only able to get 0.98 out of it, and he actually almost didn't make it out of that flight because he lost control. He started to slowly regain some control back around 12,000 feet, and he wasn't fully back under control until 3,000 feet. So this thing almost took out Chuck Yeager, and it's all because of its characteristics in the high-speed regime, which was another way that we were able to beat it. If we were able to keep it fast, we could outfly them. Once they got slow, we really had a lot of trouble staying with it. So let's talk about the cannons. A little bit different setup than what we had. And the F-86s, you know, had the normal cannons that we're used to. The MiGs had two 23mm cannons and one 37mm cannon. So these things were designed to shoot big, slow bombers like the B-29 out of the sky. And it was pretty good at that. It could sneak up on them from above, dive down on them, shoot a massive amount of metal downrange, blow the bombers apart, and then leave. They weren't really designed to be a fighter because, you know, we weren't really at that point in the jet age just yet, but it turned out to be a pretty good fighter. The issue with the guns was their relatively slow rate of fire and their different ballistics. As you can imagine, you got two 23 millimeter cannons firing and one 37mm cannon firing. So you would actually have 80 rounds for the 23 millimeters and 40 rounds of ammo for the 37mm cannon. So you would actually just get boom, 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 right? So you can imagine that as you're farther away from the target, you would actually have the 23mm cannons going over and the 37mm cannon shell going, or projectile going under the target. And that was actually reported by some of the UN pilots, and they said it was pretty terrifying. But it's due to the different ballistics. You got a smaller, higher speed, higher rate of fire projectile going over the top, and a slower, you know, fatter projectile going underneath you. So that's pretty impressive. I'm going to show you up inside the cockpit as well, and actually go back to that 0.92 issue. We actually have a Mach warning light in here. A red light would come on around 0.92 to let you know that you're probably about to lose control of your aircraft. So let's go up inside and I'll show you that. So as you can see, here's your Mach warning right here. Reach around there and give you a little bit of a view of the cockpit. You know, not a whole lot has been changed on this aircraft. We try to keep these things stock but usable. So we'll put ADS-B in these aircraft every now and then if we're going to be flying them. Actually, pretty much all our aircraft now have ADS-B because we are underneath the Houston Bravo airspace, so it's required. So even the MiG-21, the NAT, the F-100, the A4, they all have ADS-B capability now. I'll give you a little bit of a view inside. As the intake goes all the way around, single intake, just goes around the cockpit and meets back up, goes into the engine back there. So there we go. So hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of a look into the MiG-15. There's so much more to tell you about this aircraft. There's a ton. I want you guys to comment and let me know if this is the kind of stuff that you like to hear, and I will definitely tell you more about these aircraft. There's just so much to talk about in this hangar alone, and we have more airplanes outside this hangar. One of the things that I would like to do, if you guys are interested, is start talking about a general overview, kind of like what I did with just now with the MiG-15, and then talking about systems. Maybe have an entire playlist of systems for each aircraft so you can kind of learn about how they work, what does the book say versus how does it really fly, and that kind of stuff. So let me know if that's the sort of thing you're interested. This is just one long cut of me blabbing about this airplane. As you can tell, I don't really edit that much. I'll try to get better at that, but this is just one long continuous uncut me talking, and let me know if that's annoying. I tried to keep my face out of the, the frame as much as I could. But if you know more about these aircraft, also comment. Like I said, this is all about learning with each other. I like to tell you what I know. I like learning more about it. And the more we all know, the more we can keep this history alive. And it's very important to us to keep this history alive. So here we go. I'll end with one more look up into the cockpit here.